My name is Bharath Vasudevan. I lead product for Division of Quest. This is my second year coming back, and I actually wanted to start with a little bit of what I talked about last year and how, 52 weeks, a lot of stuff's changed. So last year, we were talking about bridging the gap, we called it between the data world and the real world. And really, the conversation at the time was, what do CDOs need to do to be able to take advantage of all this stuff that's changing? We talked about data sets and making sure they were consistent, contextual, curated. None of this stuff went away. But what actually happened was now this isn't just the CDO's problem. It's everybody's problem. And it's a big shift that we've all had to make a little bit because last year, and I would say in the years running up to this, AI governance turned into a data governance problem. Data governance was a CDO problem. Therefore, it was a CDO's issue. But I'm guessing all of you, in some way, shape, or form, are touching AI or Gen AI in what you're doing. And really, what I want to spend the rest of today doing is threefold. Right? One, do you all know why your leadership's trying to do AI projects and Gen AI projects? So, not always, but if you understand why your leaders are trying to get you to do stuff, it's going to be so much easier for you to actually align what you're doing to be aligned with the business. Because, the number of times, well, it doesn't happen anymore to me, but back earlier in my career, like, why are you doing this? Oh, because I was told to. And that's good, but you don't, well, and you should always sort of, with some sense, do what you're asked to do. But at the same time, if you had a little more context behind it, I bet you could do it a whole lot better. So that's one. So understand what your leadership's facing and how can you align what you're doing to get aligned with them. And then two, understand where your company is or where your role is on the data and AI lifecycle. And are you stitching together the things that you could be doing to drive better outcomes? And the last bit is, finding the right people who can help you out. So, and this is a bit of a strategy mindset. I'm not going to talk about any products, although I could do that for days. It's not what I'm here to do. But let's go through this. And if you guys have any questions, just ask. This isn't there should be no formality behind this. Now, I've been listening to a lot of the sessions today, and really, where we want to start is knowing why you're doing the things you're doing. And if I think about this, right, I get to have these conversations with not always CIOs, but usually people on the CIO's staff. And we start having this conversation about, like, what is your biggest challenge? And if I want to distill some of these things out in ways that you guys can work with it, you could start off with, I have so many data sources. And if you think back, I would say like probably 5 years ago, this term called dark data came up. Dark data is data that your organization keeps but doesn't use. And it's not keeping it for compliance reasons. It just got generated, but I don't know what to do with it. So I've got these disparate systems holding data. And typically, if you look at who cares about this, it's someone who's in leadership in the database teams. Sometimes you have a director of Oracle, sometimes you have a director of SQL Server, sometimes you have a VP of infrastructure. These are the folks that are like, crap, I got a lot of data. Then you've got the CDO who's like, is it any good? Because what's good if I have a lot of data if I can't trust it? And I actually told this story last year, and it's such a good one. I had this problem myself where I had to do a bunch of analysis on work. And I went to go present my findings, and my finance person was in the room, and the very first thing she said was, that's not my starting number. Everything else I did was trash at that point. Because, and by the way, I'm like this too. I see a presentation, and I'm following it, and then there's something ridiculous and outlandish in there, and I'm like, I don't believe the rest of it now. I don't believe everything you just told me. So now, how do I make sure the data is trustworthy? And by the way, you guys mostly know this, CDO wasn't really a role before GDPR. Then CDO became a thing, and now CDOs have organizations and budget, which is cool, but that's not how it used to be. You got to protect the data. The data, keep the bad guys out, keep the good stuff in. I mean, that's every security department needs to worry about that. Bad guys aren't going anywhere. And honestly, a few years ago, this would have been, what keeps your leaders up at night. But now over the last couple of years, now I have to operationalize a meaningful AI strategy. And a meaningful AI strategy isn't I use Copilot. Because I've heard people, well, what do you guys do? What is your AI strategy? Oh, we're rolling out Copilot. I'm like, well, that's not a strategy. It's using a tool. And it's funny because a couple of the CDOs I've talked to, the word meaningful is the one they keyed in on. They're like, that's the real problem. So anyone can have an AI strategy, but is it meaningful? And here's the true problem. They have to go back to their board and explain, and yes, that's a meat grinder. They have to explain why is it doing what it's meant to? Because I'm spending a heck of a lot of money on this. Am I getting my returns? So this is really, this is the backdrop of what most senior leaders are worried about. And then right behind that one, there's this old problem where I can't, if I'm not making money, if I'm not taking out costs, or if I'm not reducing risk, that project's not going to get funded. So these three things have been around for decades. This is still the underlying issue. So whatever problem you're solving has to then go back and address one of these three things. So think about the projects you're working on. Who are they servicing over here, right? Because now I'm also spanning across the data and AI journey across the bottom. Things that used to be all data are now AI considerations. So between this and between the make money, save money, take out risk, what are you guys doing? So if you're looking at, I do this myself, right? If I'm looking at, hey, am I safe? How are you aligned with your leaders, and how is it back up to their projects? Now, this is the next question you want to ask. What do I need for AI success? Well, I need to stitch my ERP and CRM data together. What's even better is if I can take a third-party data source and try to make sense of it. Now, if you can solve some of these problems, these are huge. Every single organization is dealing with this problem, and I've talked to every one of them. And even the ones that are pretty braggadocious, and they're like, yeah, we got this figured out. And I was like, oh, for real? How did you solve this? And they're like, And if any of you want to get into a little bit of the weeds, if you've ever tried data modeling SAP, it's crazy, because one, it's in German. Which is not intuitive, and there's K's in front of everything, and that's for customer. So it's just super non-intuitive. But you take that, and I want to merge that with my Salesforce data, and I want to use both of those things to produce insights. That's a really, really hard problem to go solve. Now, how do I demonstrate trust? The fellow that was here just before was talking about data catalogs, and data catalogs are really great for understanding your data. I actually think data catalogs just scratch the surface of what you can do with data. Data catalogs the foundation, but now, so what? Now I have visibility to what's there. Now how do I trust it? I need to see the lineage. I need to see the business rules that apply to it. I need to see the data quality. I need to see what reports are being used with all of these fields and columns. That's what shows you the end-to-end lineage with business terms. That's really what's going to show you if your data is actually trustworthy or not. Compliance, everyone's in some sort of regulated industry now, right? I think I heard the term double regulated from the fellow from Jackson. PII is super important. PHI is super important. Your source code is super important. You need to know where all of this stuff sits, whether it's structured or unstructured data. But again, when we talk about AI adoption and privacy, that matters. If you can now demonstrate controls, more people are going to be cool with moving forward with it. And over here, right, how do I get the right AI things in place that's going to help me bring more projects to production? Because if you look at all the stats, half our team is at Gartner in Europe, in London this week. The theme of trust is front and center. the theme of getting AI projects into production and figuring out the pitfalls that don't allow that to happen. Like, those are huge. And ultimately, right, it has to pay off the investment that someone's making. You know, where's all this magic? I mean, look, if you ever worked with intent data in marketing, that sounded like a bag of magic beans at one point. But now, once you start getting into the promise of what AI can deliver, it also sounds like magic beans. Except now we're starting to see some of the results from them, and it really is a byproduct of people following a lot of these, follow the path here, doing some of the underlying steps that are going to get your data and ready and fit for AI use, and then you can start taking advantage of it. So the point of this part here was really, figure out why you're doing what you're doing. How are you better servicing the business? How are you trying to drive to bigger problems that you're being solved? And how do you fit in the puzzle? Because the better you fit in the puzzle and the more integral you are, everybody wants to be a hub, nobody wants to be a spoke. Well, can you work your way into the hub by understanding how you're aligning with what your leaders are cared about? That's part one. Part two, understanding the data and AI lifecycle. Now, this one's fun for us because, look, you got to know where you are and where you want to get. This is what's happening in strategy discussions, right? We have a point of view. I have a point of view around it. Quest Software has a point of view around it, and it's not radical. It really isn't. But it's model, build, move, govern, and use. And I'm going to walk you through a little, just our point of view around it, and think about where your own organizations are. I had a conversation at lunch. I can't remember if she's still here, but my company will not move to AI. We're a stick in the mud. We're a slow adopter. And I was like, well, you're not going to be for long, right? That is not going to be the way of the world. But I'm going to walk you through this point of view, and you can nod along if it makes sense to you. I don't run into a lot of fresh-faced CIOs. They got some mileage on them, more grays than me usually. But we have this conversation, right? Let's talk about how back in the day. And this is, when I say back in the day, I'm not talking like, three-tier architectures or anything like that. 10 years ago, lots and lots of data, apps were being deployed by whatever team wanted to build an app. There was really no governance. I would say, the move to cloud helped a lot of this stuff, normalize it. Like, now you have to do it all in AWS, or you have to do it all in Azure or GCP. But apps were being built left and right. People picked whatever database they wanted. And now you've got a lot of data that's been created by an app that's trapped all over the place. But everybody created data for their own use. They had a problem, they solved it. And you were given free rein to go solve it however you want. More and more applications, more and more silos of data, and you're now your poor analyst team. Right, those are the guys that are like, hey, build me the reports. And they're like, there's not enough of me to do this. And if you ever worked with your analyst teams, I love them, but I'm the king of ad hoc requests, and they really hate me. And I was like, hey, can you do this for me? And they're like, nah. Can I get to it after my day job? And I was like, sure. Like, he goes, when do you need it? I'm like, well, I need it now is why I'm asking you for it, but, when you get to it. So, and I feel for them. What was the solution to this? The solution was let's all throw it in a data warehouse. Data warehouse will fix everything. And now that's migrated into cloud data warehouses. So let's put all the data in one place and then we can act on it. Except that all that data was never really intended to work together. It's just all in there. If you look at the big cloud database warehouse vendors, cloud data warehouse vendors, they sold capacity for the past few years. Now they're selling consumption because you've got all these big deployments out there that no one's really using. Why aren't they using it? Oh, I can't get my data in there. I can't get my data in a usable manner. And when you go talk to them, and this surprised me, right? I was at one of their partner conferences earlier this year, and they said the number one source of data coming into our system is Salesforce. I was like, that's not intuitive. And then when you double click and triple click, it becomes super intuitive because it is the cleanest data. It's in a structured format. Everyone knows how to use it. And if you ingest it once, it's kind of unique. It's common across multiple different companies. Like the structure of what they're importing is about the same. So it's easy to take advantage of it. But now they can't correlate it with anything. And it's a project that we're working on internally ourselves, when we call it our own customer zero use case. But how are we going to take ERP data and CRM data? So aggregation was clearly the first step. This goes back to SQL Server Analytics Services, just slap a visualization tool, slap Power BI on it. How many people have slapped Power BI on it and just everything works great? Nope. Then you find out, what do you mean I can only use one cube? And then things go sideways from a reporting standpoint. So, all right, aggregation is the first step. I'm going to put everything in one place. But now, what have we done? We've put a bunch of data in one place that was never meant to talk to each other. Fortunately, there's this technology that's been lurking since the 90s called data modeling. And it had its role in the 90s. It was cool. It was a differentiation. But now, with the explosion of data sources, data modeling has a whole new lease in life. Now, I can understand all the entity relationships between all of my disparate data. And now what I've really done is I've normalized all that data into different sizes of Legos. And if I know all my Legos, I know anything I can build. I can model the data in its source system. I can model the data in the cloud data warehouse. And now if I know what I've got over here and I know what I've got over there and I understand the relationships with them, now all the data starts making sense. Now I'm not going to run a query and I'm like, what's my revenue? And I get 4 different answers. Because now it's all going to be governed, right? You're going to understand your building blocks. So we've found that data modeling has a whole new lease on life in terms of a foundational technology to understand all the disparate types of data that you're trying to bring in. But again, we talked about this compliance problem, this PII problem, so data governance has crept around. I got to know what I'm dealing with, right? Unity Catalog has its own stuff. Purview has its own stuff. The whole BigQuery ecosystem has its own stuff. And I don't remember what the AWS one is, but they got their own as well. Snowflake has their own stuff. So I got to see all this stuff. I got to pull it all together. I need to have a view of the world. And actually, if you think about this, in the case of, let's go to bad actors and cybersecurity land, but let's just say you got ransomed. You got a bunch of stuff encrypted and ransomed. If you actually have technology like a good data governance program in place, you'll know exactly what got popped. Is it customer data? Is it credit card data? Or is it junk? And if it's junk, you can just recover it from your backup. They can release it to the dark web and you're good. You don't have to pay the ransom. So there's just different ways that some of these underlying technologies can still, play whack-a-mole in a different division entirely. But again, servicing the same sort of use case where that visibility and knowing what you have is applicable here as well. Now, let's pull this all back together, right? You're modeling the data, both at its source and its destination. You're moving the data from its sources to its destination. Tons of tools and technologies to go do that for you. You've got an AI model governance and a data governance program to stick on top of it. Because you're now able to track all of your data from its model to where it's being used, you can have a map of all of the data that's going to feed your AI model and where all it's being used. All the way down from column to data product. All the way across, you can have a view of that. And now if you've got, again, a good data governance tool, a solution, an AI governance solution, that's going to have a marketplace that's now going to bridge the technical users and the business users. So instead of going back to my poor analyst buddy and asking him for ad hoc reports, he can go create me a data product that results in the outcome I'm looking for, publishes it on the marketplace and says, you just go take that. And I'm going to now know, because now it's a scored data set that's got gold, silver, bronze up on it. I'm going to know that of all the data sets that are out there, this is the data product that I want to use because it's a gold data product. Now, I've solved the problem all the way from I was now sitting in silos of applications and data that was going dark because nobody could use it, to normalizing it, putting it all into a cloud data warehouse, being able to query it, now being able to take the data product that drives an outcome in a marketplace and push that back to the business users. I've solved a lot of different problems by looking at this data and AI lifecycle. Did all that make sense? That flow of, now, here's the trick, right? I can help you with any of those things. Like, we've got products in our portfolio to do that, but that's not what you care about, right? This isn't really what you need. What you actually need is something that solves bigger problems. And here's where we're actually working right now. This is where we're pouring a lot of our R&D energy into. What are IT projects that are getting funded? So I was going back to the beginning, right? What are your leaders? What are they trying to do? I'm measured on getting to the cloud. Now I'm also being measured on getting an ROI from that cloud data lake investment that I made. We have they're a huge customer of ours. They're a big insurance company. Made a big bet on our data and AI governance solution in Snowflake. And he looks to us and is like, can you help make this work? Because if I get this right, that's my path from CDO to CIO. That's how they're thinking, right? And I was like, hey, is this your path from CDO to CIO? And he's like, so how can we help that person be successful? I mean, it's the way I think, and if I worked in that organization, that's how I think as well. Like, every day, I'm like, hey, how do I make my boss look good? Because if I make my boss look good, I look good, and we look good. Where else are money being spent? Full stack observability. How can I understand the data that I have? Is my data explainable and trustworthy? Right? There is no product. I don't think there's a product that delivers against any one of these things. Right? This is a set of capabilities. You see a lot of systems integrators have practices around these things because they know it's not a single product. And here's the fun one, right? How do I ensure my data is calibrated and fit for AI? These are, or hey, once I get up and running, how do I know that it's still good? Is this you guys familiar with this concept of drift? Like, it was good today, but it's not good tomorrow? Well, how am I going to know about that? So these are bigger problems, not always solved by a single product. But now let's talk about, finding the right people who can help. What are you looking for? And this isn't I've got everything solved for you. I don't. But if you're trying to solve this, who are you looking for in a partner? And I think I might have said it, but hard business problems, rarely solved by a single product. And by the way, there is a people, process, and technology. That is absolutely what's in play here. All those things have to work in harmony for this thing to pay off. So we've got a point of view, but I think it spans elements of the data and AI lifecycle. Because ultimately, right, you're still trying to solve these things. This is where an insane amount of money is being thrown in IT budgets to get to the cloud, and in some cases get back from the cloud when they realize it was a bad decision. But you had to go there first, then realize like, oh crap, I didn't put any of the controls in place that I had on-prem. Now my costs are out of control. The pendulum comes back somewhere to the middle. It's never going to be full repatriation. We all know that. I get this comment from my customers all the time. Hey, you've captured an immense amount of data in my environment. Can you help me with insights from it? And this is honestly where we're looking at Gen AI tools to help extract insights. I mean, think about all the volumes and volumes of log data that are sitting out there. What's important in there? Where's the needle in the haystack? There's tools that we can help you go solve for that. Now, I want to walk through a couple of scenarios, right? Here's your problem. My problem is I need to maximize my cloud data lake investment. I've got cost overruns. I didn't know how much this stuff was going to cost. Remember when we talked about the cloud migration and that was a comment? Well, now it's the exact same problem, except it's not AWS, it's Snowflake. I didn't know how much that was going to cost. I didn't know how much consumption credit that was going to take. So you got cost overruns, you got performance issues. A query that was built for a relational database does not perform the same as a query built for a cloud data lake. But you don't know that if you're not instrumented up the right way to find that out. And frankly, this last one, right? The data quality and governance, is it there, is it not there? So here's a methodology, right? A solution to start looking at this. So I wanna look at this, right? What do I need to do first? I got a model. I reverse engineer I can either start at my cloud data lake or I can start with my source system. I'm either forward engineering out of my source system, reverse engineering out of my cloud data lake. I can map the dependencies. Now I got to get the data in the cloud data lake so I can move it. And then once I'm there and I'm in my new model, I have to be able to monitor. I have to be able to see, is this doing what it said it was going to do? Is it doing it in a performant way? Am I having degradation? So now we're looking at a broader use case. Now, if I look at this, right, we tongue-in-cheek call it model before you move. It helps with salespeople because it's a mnemonic and it's got a lot of M's in it. But really what we're doing is we're maximizing your cloud data lake investment. And by the way, we've got customers that are doing this. Now, in some cases, we've retrofitted back from what they were doing, but Mars is a great example. I think it's a subsidiary or a parent of the M&M Mars group, but they're doing pet food, so not really. But anyhow, they have a lot of consumer models. They have a lot of consumer packaged goods models. We're working with a partner, Tiger Analytics, fantastic partner that we work with. They're helping guide this customer through this process, but they've adopted a lot of this. I have to model it before I move it into my cloud data lake so then I can take advantage of it. It's just a mindset thinking, and I'm not just going after, I'm like, how do I look at my outcome? My outcome is I need to maximize this investment because I'm on the hook for a very large check that we wrote, said the leader. Now, let's look at another problem in a similar vein, right? What's the problem? I don't know if my data and AI models are trustworthy. And I have to go make a lot of business decisions based on the validity of some of these models. Again, I have data sitting in silos. I don't know if it's any good. And I don't know what to do, right? I have all this data. I don't know if it's any good. I'm being pressured to go demonstrate value from an AI perspective. All right, so what are we doing? Now, again, this is funny. Modeling, technology has been around since the 90s. It's cool again. And I've got revenue that shows that it's cool again, which is cool. But everyone's trying to do it to now build the relationships. We actually, another large, I was talking about these guys at lunch, the energy distribution company in Europe. They've actually built a business information model. It's basically anything that could be a field. They've now governed it, and they said, hey, you, data modeler, are not allowed to create new fields. You have to pull from this catalog. This is the master list, have at it. Because then everything's gonna get normalized back against terms that the business understands. So you model it, you push it into a catalog. We've actually got some really cool technologies that you basically double click on the model, you import the model into your data governance tool, and then you can see everywhere the model's being used. You can see what business terms apply to it. You can see what data sets and data sources, data products and AI products that are built on top of that model. Talked about catalog being important, but now I understand the lineage on top of that. I can do integrated data scoring. I can certify data sets. And by doing that, and by the way, in a way that will also track drift to let you know when you're out of certification. I'm not saying that the data is going to be perfect at this point. I can't. But if someone comes to you and says, hey, how do you know that data is any good? And you can say, well, I did this, 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 and we have 7 of them. So you did 7. I've certified that in a model, and this is what we've deemed gold data sets, which, by the way, peers have reviewed, they said it's good. So, there's a whole composite score that says these are trusted data sets by the organization. One of two things happens, right? Either 5 people are wrong or you got it right, but two people don't have different answers. And you're in a much better spot than you were when you started. And by the way, talking about customers that have taken this on, and this one's surprisingly a little more heavy in Europe. Actually, no big surprise, given where data governance is probably a little bit stronger and where GDPR started. They had a little bit more of a head start in this space than most. But I think it's Ascor. If anyone's familiar with them, they're fascinating. It's a military French defense-related company where their data products are actually torpedoes. So there's a relationship model around a torpedo, which that's not how I think of data products, but that's how they think of data products. And actually the two are energy, well, Hitachi's an energy producer, E.ON's an energy distribution company. Both of them are actually using this methodology to fuel their AI models. And their AI models are doing predictive failures. Yeah, it's predictive failures of parts of the grid. You can read about Nostradamus AI. That's Hitachi Energy's. They've branded it. It's pretty cool. But these are companies that are actually taking the technologies we've given them and they're trying to solve bigger problems, right? This establishing trust. I wish there was a product out there that I could just go off the shelf. Ooh, this is my trust and data product. Let me take that one. That doesn't exist. It's a process. It's a process that everybody has to get on board with. And the last one I want to share with you, this idea of AI model governance, right? If I'm telling you the steps to having trustworthy data is it starts with modeling, then it's cataloged, then it's curated, it's got governance on it, I can see the lineage. So look, if you're a business user, you just want to know what's gold, right? That's all you care about. But if you're the technical user, you're going to run in there and show me the math because I don't believe gold. Gold sounds like BS. And now if you can go back and say, oh, okay, well that data product or that AI model has been modeled. It's in the catalog. All the things that comprise it, I know where it came from. It's got the business rules around it. And then, by the way, it's now published on a marketplace where consumers can take it. I've ticked a lot of boxes. I'm telling you, hey, that's as good as it's going to get. When we talk about demonstrable controls, I've got them. An auditor is going to be cool with this because it's not like you willy-nilly. It's not take my word for it. It's we've done all this stuff. So, when I talk about the trying to how you guys find the right partner to work with, what are we trying to solve? Where are we trying to align our solution sets? It's really around solving the bigger problems. The bigger problems are sold to more senior folks. You aligning what you do to a more senior audience is going to make you more relevant. I mean, I think all of us want to be relevant in our jobs. I certainly do. But if I go back to the beginning, right, and these are the things that we wanted to talk about when we started today. Do you know what your leaders are facing? I mean, do you feel like you have a better view of that now than when we started today? And some of you are super plugged in. You're like, no, it's the same. I always knew about that stuff. Cool. But for the rest of us, do you feel like you kind of understand what they're dealing with and how you can align to solve your leaders' needs? The second one is, are we back to understanding, at least have a view of the data and AI lifecycle, how data goes from it's in that it was built over here in this app to now it's fueling an AI model. There's a journey that it has to go on, and you're on that journey somewhere with your data. Figure out where you are, where you want to go. Not everyone's going to be Captain AI tomorrow, but having good data is a prerequisite for a lot of things. And again, I've lived it. I've lived it unpleasantly. I've cried ugly about it. But I've had really, really bad data that now we actually have really, really good data that we're operating on. So now when I go to my finance person, we have the same dollars and cents, right? It's not like I don't know where that number came from. We're working from the exact same sheet of music because now we're using the same trusted data. And lastly, is it a product? Is it a methodology? Is it a solution? Are there bigger things that you're looking to go solve? And how do you find a right partner to help you go do that? my last little, I do work for a product company, so chances are we're already actually in your environment and you may not know it. So we've got 85% of the Fortune 500 products that have several thousands of customers. So you may not know Quest software, but chances are we're touching a lot of your most critical data. We've had a lot of time to go figure this particular set of problems out. AI has just been the accelerator for us. And I can tell you what we're doing if we're engaged at the right level. And this isn't about us, it's about anything that you guys are doing. If you're engaged at the right level, if you're engaged at the right seniority level, speaking at them at the right language that they need to hear, a lot of things become relevant that weren't the day before. So I think I'm good. You guys have any questions?
It was a great presentation, by the way. I'm a long-time Irwin kind of
Oh, cool.
Quest, so all of it. Yes.
I have a question. When you talk about model, build, move, govern, use, is that a linear sequence, or can it be taken in building block steps out of order?
Well, if you look at the example that we provided, it started off way nonlinear, right? It started off with people who were building and using. Right? They didn't model. Nobody modeled back when, modeling's only become in vogue again because there's so many data sources. So no, now if I'm starting from scratch, yes, I would, but no one's starting from scratch. That's not realistic. You're starting somewhere, but the nice part is you can reverse engineer out of the things you've already built. So, you're kind of building the blueprints from the finished house. You can still do that. So it's not a showstopper. All right, guys.
So I'd just like to comment one thing. I mean, I'm a big believer in the models. We heard earlier Pete talking about normalization. I think that's one of the biggest keys I'm finding in companies I talk to about trust. And it is all about trust. It's how do I trust this data? How do I trust this AI? Trust through the modeling, through the lineage, any types of information in the catalogs. But can you expand a little bit about the marketplace? Because that's something you guys do, and
Yeah.
talk about products, and I think that's really a key moving forward.
So, okay. Who made business decisions 5 years ago? It was all the technical people. Technical people ruled the roost. And if you were a technical person, you probably had a lot of decisions to make. The big change that's happened over the last 5 years is the business users are creeping up. And think about this, right? It's a way that it's made sense to me. In your organizations, is data an asset or is data a liability? Now, everyone wants to be like, no, data's an asset, dummy. But think about how your companies are actually using it. Is data something that needs to be protected, put the wall around? If that was the case, you have a bunch of technical people that were ruling the roost and saying, policy this, policy that, this is how it's gonna be. Well, what's changed is this idea that IT can be a profit center, that data is your organization's secret sauce. If you're thinking like that now the business users have control. What do the business users want? I don't give a damn. You tell me it's trustworthy, I'm there, but you better give me good data. So they want it served to them in a marketplace. If I'm a CDO, I don't want anyone jerry-rigging some crap in Power BI and Excel that's, the foundation of the business strategy. I want all the data coming out of a marketplace. If I put it in a marketplace, I know it's trusted, I know it's governed, I can go show the math to any auditor that wants to say, how did you get here? So the concept of a marketplace is a business user-friendly way to consume data. It's simply put, and it's only relevant now because progressive CDOs, progressive organizations are looking at data as an asset, not a liability. So
Exactly.
That's the...
No, and I agree. I think the marketplace for users, engineers, scientists, and users, managers, but they come there to find data, to understand it, and then ultimately to trust it so they can use it. So.
It's no different than the self-service portals you guys have for installing an application on your corporate laptop, right? They don't want you going out to the internet to go find it. They want you to go to your portal because it's, the right patching process is on there. It's governed. It's on the CMDB. It's all these other things. It's the same process, except now instead of your laptops and your applications, it's the data sets that your analysts are using.
one last question. So in tying this together, another term, I didn't hear you use too much, but how does, for you guys, the term data contracts kind of fit into that? That's kind of a new buzzy.
You say contract?
Yeah, data contract underneath the data product.
I mean, ultimately, the data contract is, it's in the my contract to you is if the data is in the marketplace, it's trustworthy. You can use it. It's simply, and I've heard CDOs say that. I have marketing people, so I cringe a little bit when I hear words like data contract, but I get it, right? It's a term that's used, and it's so easy to convey what that means. But yeah, that's what, like, I've heard CDOs say you're not allowed to use the data unless it comes from the marketplace.
Right.
So.
And yeah, that's the same thing I'm hearing, is that contract is just a new label for something we've always done with SLAs and quality agreements and things like that, but that's the new buzz in the marketplace. So thank you. This
you bet.
great presentation.
Coffee, right? Coffee time?
Yeah.
Yeah.